I'm very honored to have this conversation with a worldwide guru like you, Professor Eric Mintzberg. Besides an irreverent guru, because you go straight to the substance of things and say it. This is very useful because when we approach an organization, it's easy to become hostages to false beliefs, fashions, and actual illusions. You've been dealing with organization for 50 years. In your opinion, what are the 5 most dangerous and widespread illusions regarding organizations today?
Okay, I'm not sure I can focus on 5, but let me just mention several. I think one is what I call measuring like mad, which is we don't know what to do, so we measure. And we measure some things that can be measured, and we measure other things that really can't be measured. We can measure how long it takes to turn over a hamburger at McDonald's, but we can't measure how long it takes to put a stent in to an artery. Maybe the variation is just too great. So one is measuring like mad. A bigger one is what I call heroic leadership, that we build up this idea that the great one is going to come in and save us, and make much too much of fuss about leadership. Leadership is important, but there's more bad leadership than good leadership. In fact, it's a bit shocking in the world today politically how few really good leaders there are. It's just shocking. I mean, if we consider someone like Nelson Mandela, who in the world today has that kind of quality and integrity? And it's really quite shocking. I'm tempted to say that women maybe do better than men as head of state. I'm not sure I would include Italy in this right now, but in some countries like New Zealand previously, women did well. So that's a second one. Another one is relentless reorganizing. The easiest way to change an organization is to reorganize it on a chart. You move him, her, and him here, and her there, and you change names and you change titles, and all you need is a good pencil and a good eraser to erase what you did, and so on. And even in government, we reorganize the cabinet. It's very easy. Of course, it creates havoc with people. Strategic planning. Strategic planning to me is an oxymoron. We don't plan strategy, we learn strategy. We don't do it formally and systematically. We learn it through mistakes and efforts and experiments. And the last one maybe should be the first one, is shareholder value, that somehow corporations exist exclusively for their owners, so that somebody who buys what's called a day trader, who buys the stock in the morning and sells the stock in the evening, owns the corporation, but the employee who works there for 30 years doesn't have any ownership of the corporation. So that would be about 5 of them.
So the illusion you describe are the organizational pillar, aren't they?
As
traditional organizational pillars.
Yeah, pillars, yeah, and hierarchies, yeah.
And you said that traditional organizational pillars are illusions.
Yeah, and hierarchy, what you were interested in talking about too. I think this idea that somehow who your boss is the most important thing in the organization, and who you're grouped with, who you sit with is more important than who you report to, because that's who you talk to at the coffee machine if you go to work.
Yeah. I wrote a book about hierarchy, because in the last decades we wrote so many books about leadership, but never speak about hierarchy.
Yeah.
And leadership and that hierarchy are very different dimensions, but no
Yes.
one speak about hierarchy.
Well, if you put leadership and hierarchy together, then leadership is the top of the hierarchy. But the higher up you are, the more you're distant from what's happening on the ground. So,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the more higher up you feel. Of course, if you're on top of the hierarchy, you're probably on top of the building too. So you're farthest away from the ground. But if you're on top of the hierarchy, you probably see yourself as being on top. And that's no way to manage an organization.
In my book, I explored hierarchy not only as the organizational structure of authority, but also as a mental structure that we humans use to give an order of importance. In fact, we continually create hierarchies, for example, of values, rules, competency, priority, affection, friends, enemies, and so on. So in your book, Understanding Organizations, finally, you wrote that there isn't a best way to organize. And for that reason, as there isn't a best way to organize, you propose to start from 4 fundamental forms and 7 forces that reinforce each other. In your opinion, do hierarchies exist in each form and force? And what are they and their role?
Well, one of them I call a program machine, a classic bureaucracy like McDonald's. And that's where you find traditional hierarchy strongest. You know, everybody has a pecking order according to where you are on the chart. If you go to a second form that I call a professional assembly, like hospitals and universities and so on, you have that kind of hierarchy with regard to the regular staff and even the nursing sometimes, but the physicians don't usually report through that hierarchy. The physicians have a hierarchy of status. You know, the lowest are the interns, and then the residents, and then the staff, and then the staff that publish in the big journals and so on. So you have a hierarchy of status, but not a hierarchy of authority. A hierarchy of chart, you know, on the chart. In a project enterprise, project organization, like I call a project pioneer, like a film company where they're making different films, the hierarchy is not so strong because everybody's an expert. And so everybody defers to the expertise of someone. So the writer has a certain expertise, and the camera crew has a certain expertise, and the editors have a certain expertise. Everybody's an expert. So there's not so much hierarchy.
So it's an hierarchy of competencies.
Yeah, exactly. Expertise,
Yeah, expertise. In my book, I talk about hierarchies of connection that support evolution, open up, lead to collaboration and learning, and hierarchy based on defense that limit evolution and lead people and companies to close themselves off to conflict, to fuel distance and separation. Defense hierarchies are activated by fear, linked to the principle of survival. And when these defense hierarchies are activated, we seek security through conflict or isolation. Connection hierarchies, however, are activated by the experience of mutual safety. And writing this book, I discovered that the first model of these hierarchies is in our body, in the autonomic nervous system, which has the structure of a hierarchy. Stephen Porges, neuroscientist, the author of the polyvagal theory, discovered that this biological hierarchy is the product of evolution and function both as a defense hierarchy and as a connection hierarchy. So I apply them to the organizational field because Porges developed his studies in the neurological one. So I found very interesting this relationship between the biological hierarchies and organizational hierarchies.
Yeah, no, I can understand that the nervous system. I started to play with that metaphor in the book, but I didn't take it too far. I talked about the brain and the heart and the nervous system and the blood that flows through. So in one chapter, I do talk about the flows in an organization, the way blood flows through a body, the blood carries the oxygen around, and the flows in an organization carry the information around. So those metaphors I think can work quite well sometimes. But the body is not, I'm not sure the body is a hierarchy in the sense of the brain. The brain is in control, of the brain commands. We do all kinds of things that the brain doesn't tell us to do. If you hit me on the knee, I will kick, and the brain doesn't tell me to kick. The knee will kick automatically through the nervous system.
In your opinion, what should the role of human resources departments be today?
First, I don't like the word human resources because I'm not a human resource. I'm a human being. And I don't like this economic vocabulary. I don't like the word human resources. I don't like the word human assets. I don't like the word human capital. The economists have imposed on us a very cold-blooded vocabulary that is not conducive to involving people in organizations. So, the first thing the Human Resources Department can do is to change its name to the People Department or something, or the Human Being Department, or Personnel was perfectly fine years ago, and not use that label. I think they're the department that, draws attention to how people should be treated in the organization. Too much of what they do is statistical and numbers and calculations and analytical, but I think their main job is to look after and remind people how important the human beings in the organization are.
Speaking about the different form, you talk about the organizational machine focused on efficiency. In which context does this form is still useful nowadays?
Probably in more than any other, ironically, because a lot of what we want is mass production products, and we want mass services. And, we have professional services like dentistry or whatever, but we have a lot of mass services like restaurants, serving in restaurants. Cooking may be more professional, but serving in restaurants is and a lot of cooking in McDonald's, for example. So no, there are a lot of places where, hotels. We don't want imagination in hotels. We don't want great professional services in hotels. We want very routine services. We want we want our room cleaned. We want to check in very efficiently. Efficiency is what we really care about in hotels. We like beauty and nice looking hotels, but we also want efficiency. Many of the things we do are still like that. If you look at sports, some sports are more are more flexible than other sports, but American football is the most bureaucratic sport you can imagine. You have hierarchy on the field, traditional hierarchy. The quarterback calls the play. Everybody has their rules. Who can catch the ball? Who can't catch the ball? So many rules in soccer, football, or hockey, ice hockey, or basketball, or rugby. It's much more flexible. It's much more teamwork, much more like a project organization, much more flexible. No hierarchy on the field. Nobody's in charge on a soccer field. There may be better players and worse players, but they work together. There's no hierarchy. There's no authority on the field. The rules are minimal, not a lot of rules compared to American football, and so on. And people are spread out. In American football, they're all lined up. Even the cheerleaders are all lined up.
But when the focus is on efficiency, do you think it's possible to cultivate the orientation to clients, in cross-functional integration, delegating? Because you say when we are in hotel, we need routine. Yes, but there is it's also important the quality of the service, if they are able to listen to you. So how to keep these variables together?
Yeah, but the quality of the service doesn't necessarily have to do with the proficiency of the service. In other words, in a hotel, I want good service, but it's not very complicated service. It's not very professional service. The person who cleans the room is not highly trained. The person behind the counter who accepts me and registers me is not a very highly sophisticated service. If I go into the restaurant in a good hotel, then I'm in a different case. The chefs are very high quality. So efficiency matters in the rest of the hotel, and proficiency matters in a gourmet restaurant. But there's many things. When I'm on the telephone calling for service for my telephone company or my laptop, I need expert service, but I also need efficient service. I need them to answer the phone quickly and not keep me waiting for 2 hours.
Yeah. So we need different kind of hierarchies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Not only one.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, watching an Italian film, you have all sorts of things that are unexpected, and that's not, it's a bit like Fellini. You never know.
For example, unexpected. For example.
I don't know, just things happen in all kinds of weird ways. And I think it's because they give the writers and the cameraman and the actors a lot of discretion to invent and come up with different things. It's not all scripted. That's a different kind of organization. It's not a classic bureaucracy. It's not a classic form. That's what makes Italy so charming. But what also makes Italy so charming is the cuisine, because of wonderful restaurants in Italy. But that's quite programmed, quite. Every village has its pasta, and every place. If you want gnocchi, you go to Genoa, and if you want I don't know, something else, you go to another part of the country. So it's a completely different kind of organization again. And so there's an example of one organization that's based on proficiency, cooking in good restaurants, and another that's based on innovation, namely filmmaking. And Italy is very strong on those too. Maybe not so strong on bureaucracy. You know, the old story about making the trains run on time. It's bureaucracy that makes the trains run on time. Italians maybe don't like bureaucracy so much.
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Hmm.
So,
Okay. So thank
Professor
you.
Mintzberg, I thank you for this very interesting conversation. It was an honor for me to meet you. And thank you very much for all your books. Thank you very much. They are a gift.
Thank you. And thank you for interviewing me. It's a pleasure. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.